All right, guys, we are live. Welcome to the first edition period of review. I am Maggie Geppert, known as Jadziadax8 on the boards. With me here, I have Christopher Wieker, or is it Wieker or Viker? How is it in Swedish?
Viker.
Wieker. All right, known as Smiley to the boards. He is our first edition brand manager. I've got John Carter, our rules guru, also known as PFTI. We have Dave Runyon, aka Super Dave, from Creative. And then we've got Dan Hammond, aka Sir Dan, as our design guest. So welcome, guys. I'm glad you could be here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll start off. I just want to get any opening remarks from our guests. So let's start with Smiley as our brand manager.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. It's fun to be here. It's the second time I do this, and now I actually have something to contribute, I hope, because last year I was just appointed, and this is going to be a fun time, I guess. Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, so then Dave, I guess, will go next. Any opening comments, Dave?
David Runyon, 1E Creative, and I guess I'm in charge of the lore around here, making sure all the Trek sense stays on track with the cards. We're in the middle of a set right now, wrapping things up, so I'm excited to keep things moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And less librarian voice. Let's bring your volume up a little bit more. All right, then Dan. Any opening remarks?
Yeah, it's good to be here. I think over the last year we've put out a lot of great cards. Our stable of designers has been steadily getting a little bigger, and so I feel like I don't have my hands in every set. So when cards come out now, I'm seeing them for not necessarily the first time, but I didn't have anything to do with them, so that's fantastic. And I'm looking forward to spreading out the love even more. We're going to be pulling a few more people in as well. So good times.
All right. Thank you, Dan. And then John, any opening remarks?
It's been a nice, quiet year for rules, which I suppose is a good thing. Nothing has been too broken this year. And few minor projects in the works, some of them long-term projects that we're still trying to trudge through. But so far, not too bad, I think.
All right, good. Well, hopefully we will get into some of those projects coming up through the ranks. All right, so I will start off with the same way that I started off yesterday's second edition, which was surveys show people disagree about everything. So we'll start with that and then move forward. All right, so our first topic is going to be art. So this is actually a rehash of a question that I asked yesterday because I noticed something very interesting when I was looking through the most popular sets from first edition and second edition this past year, and first edition people loved the 20th anniversary collection, and it was not hardly a blip on the radar for the second edition folks. So do you guys have any thoughts on why that would have been the most popular set of the year for first edition?
Well, I think it had a little bit to do with that it was the only expansion that was not block. I think that has some to do with it. And then I guess, well, as we did do a lot of great cards that we hadn't visited in a while, like templates, like the Q template and stuff like that. I guess that would make a little bit for it too. But most of it I think has to do with that it was not a block expansion.
Yeah, I think just to kind of echo those remarks, I think it was just really in the spirit of first edition across the cards, a wide range of different cards with different stories, and one of the first sets in a while where there was just some cards that did wacky things,
yeah,
which in my mind is really half of what makes 1E so great, is that this card having the occasional card that maybe isn't just right into a deck every day, but lets you do something you never could do in the game before.
Yes.
And I'm sure quantum incursions had something to do with that too.
There was a lot of really fun things. I think we went out of our way to just do the bizarre. The theme of, pitch something from that could have been in Premiere, pitch something that could have been in, a Mirror. We had a few cards that had been sitting in the back that were good, that we were able to slot into a lot of places. I don't think we hit every mark. That the Gemidar that was a conversion wasn't very well received, but some of the weird things like there's no Fajo in second edition, so having something that we just really out there stuff, I think helped a lot.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Thank you, guys. So from the popular to the controversial then, there seems to be equal amounts of love and hate for photoshopped images, such as Captain Lursa. Even the people who love cards like the Captain warn of being careful with cards like Turo and Dolores. Could you discuss some of the reasoning why you would use such an image over ones found on the screen?
Oh, this is more an art question actually than our question. We turned this over mostly to art, but I guess David can talk a little about it.
Since we're the guys who pick out which images art should look for, I'm gonna take some, but not all of the blame for cards like that. A number of cards or card ideas that we get from design don't line up with anything that we have useful images for in the show. Sorry, folks. Hang on just a second.
That's all right.
I'll jump in and say that we having the expansion of knowing that if we put something as design, put something together that we really don't have an idea for. I think Dolores was Romulan Dissonant #1 through most of testing. That they can jump in and say, well, we've got an idea for this. We think we can pull it from this still, which was from this image, which was from this. That frees us up to not worry so much when we put something out there. I do accept the criticism of doing it too much will definitely water down what we can do. I think that there's so many images out there and so many things out there that we shouldn't have to do this very often. But the fact that we can do it occasionally is very freeing from the design side.
Yeah, sure.
And who was the basis for Dolores' picture? I didn't know anyone in art had such a strong jawline.
I don't think that. I think Dolores was a. Let's see now. Who is it again?
No, there wasn't this taken from a still.
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
in like on a sheet or on a computer monitor that Spock was looking at or something like that, or maybe it was Troy and. That's where I seem to recall it was from. It was taken from and severely enhanced. Very well.
Oh, right now I know.
Yes, it does. It may. I really did wonder if that was a picture of somebody who had been superimposed over it, like somebody in the continuing committee.
No, I know what this is.
It was very well enhanced.
This is an image. Actually, this is a makeup image that they found. This is a behind the scenes makeup image for one of the extras that was part of the. The set, and he was not clearly seen on screen. So the best image that they had of him was this makeup image of him, like how the makeup art department should do his makeup. So this is a makeup like image from the set, and not something that was actually shown on screen, anything like that. And then they just enhanced his image and put him to on a background or some kind, but you can actually find that image from makeup screen from that episode that he was in.
Neat. I didn't realize we had access to those kind of images.
It's free on the internet, or I should say that you can find it on the internet. We don't actually have more access than anything else. Not that I know of. Art could have hidden treasures.
We put a lot of faith in our art team
Yes.
to back us up when we at Creative say, well, here's this thing that was referenced in the Star Trek wiki. So can you find it? Can you grab it? And then if they can find it, we'll use it. And if they can't, then we have to go back to design and say, I know you wanted a female Kazon with law, but we're having a really tough time finding anyone who looks remotely Kazon and female and lawyer-ish.
All right. Well, let's move on from there then, guys. Thank you for that. All right. So that's pretty much it for art. You know, mostly get the keep up the good work kind of comments for art. Creative, mostly the community, the biggest comment we got was that lore is the most important creative element on a card. And this is completely understandable because this is where you have a lot of important gameplay elements. How have you balanced these important gameplay elements with fun stuff like references to milk baths over the last year?
There's less about balance and more about getting things in the right order. We'll often get directions from design that are 8 or 9 keywords, and we have to turn that into complete sentences. And then there isn't room for a whole lot more. So milk bath is pretty short. We can fit that in. But when somebody like the intendant has multiple romantic involvements and other important keywords, there's not a lot of room for story. The opposite end is also pretty difficult when we have a need for a universal person who has 1 or 2 skills and doesn't do much else. We have to find somebody from the background somewhere and create a story out of whole cloth. So that lets us be creative and figure out the story. The ones in the middle, we try to follow precedent and pull the key story elements that tell that personnel's story in the Star Trek universe. For some of the main characters that we see frequently, like Quark or Picard, we try to tell a more specific story. If it's somebody that we'll only see once or maybe twice, then we try to tell as much of their history as we can. But 3 lines isn't a whole lot to make that happen, so it can be tricky. It makes us good at Twitter.
All right. So do you guys have any other successes or failures you'd like to talk about in terms of creative, things that you thought were rip roaring success and stuff, some stuff that was just like, oh God, I can't believe we did that.
Let's see. I'm usually quite impressed when a set hits release or when it's first spoiled online, to see that's usually the first time that I see a card with the images, and I can look back and see, okay, art has come in with a fantastic image and fantastic graphical work to make the card look just great from the suggestion that we gave them, and to see how that image ties back into the lore that we wrote, and then to see how the lore ties in with the gameplay elements that that design handed us, it's just fantastic to see every single time. The the thing that's been bothering me most over the last couple weeks has been Regent Wharf from the crossover collection, or crossover set. How we repeated wishes and wished in the lore box. We try not to be too repetitive and pull out our thesauruses, but this is one that slipped through pretty early, and I'm just kind of grouchy that we missed it.
Were you watching my period of review yesterday where I told Matt Kirk to put down the thesaurus?
No.
All right, so thank you. And apparently I was not told Matt Zinno was supposed to join us as well. I just sent him an invitation, so hopefully he'll be seeing that soon.
Yes.
All right, let's see. I think that's all I've got for creative. So let's move over into design. All right, so affiliation flavor, according to the community, is the most important aspect of design. People like how the most recent sets have created differentiation between affiliations. However, there is concern about the explosion of the free report / draw engines lately. How has design dealt with this year, and how will you, how will design balance the need for affiliation differentiation with the free report salad phenomenon?
That's always a tough one. The affiliation flavors, I think, come in a lot through, much more through verbs and things in first edition, and that's what differentiates and adds and it puts groups together. Unfortunately, the wider the wider net you cast, the more free reports you get, and then what happens is the best free report engines percolate to the top, and people take whatever the best is and put it all together, even if it really wasn't meant to be played that way. We have kind of a calculation that we like to do behind the scenes of how many reports and how many draws are kind of good and great, and that's what we shoot for. We rely heavily on our testers to put things together and try to mash things up. You want to try to play Mirror Starfleet with Sona, well, we'll see how that works. You might get a lot of free plays, but they won't mesh well together. And we just go from there. Smiley, you want to jump in here?
Well, we know that there's been a lot of problems with the combination of different free report engines, and well, as Dan said, we really go out of our way to actually make them not mesh that well if they were not supposed to mesh well from the start. But as we have noticed, people tend to just squeeze in as much as they can find sometimes into a deck, and apparently it works good enough for them to actually come up on top. But what we have noticed much is that actually it's the control of the hand is most of the time what we try to focus more on. It's if you can what do you call it? It's the draw engines that actually is the controlling factor, because you can have 7 free report engines in play or even seeded, but if you don't have any cards in hand, or if you can't draw enough cards, you're out of luck because you can't report anything anyway. So we really try to make them not mesh as well as you probably want them to, because everybody's looking for a cheat somewhere. Did I answer that? I think I did.
Well, that has been the problem since since Premiere is, okay, so you can drop your hand with Red Alert, and then what?
Yes.
Right, so if you can't get draws in, Red Alert doesn't do you any good anymore.
No. So, but yes, the problem has been a lot of play engines have crept up, but we are trying to pull back on the draw engines at the moment. So we'll see where we end up. But design is looking forward.
Well, are there other ways that you guys have in mind to differentiate between affiliations? Like I'm thinking about, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to date myself with this. Like I really loved, back in the Decipher days, the fact that Cardassians did Nors, and that was a really, that was one of my favorite aspects of that, and that you could do some capture stuff, and nobody else could do that. So, you guys have anything on the horizon for that?
I can't tell. I wish I would. I have a whole sheet of things I can't tell you yet, or I don't want to. Should I say that? Because I want it to be a surprise down the line. But maybe
okay,
maybe later.
So I'll jump in and say things that he doesn't want me to. The last set that I worked on was the Maquis set, and we did a bit of differentiating. You could play TNG, you can play DS9, or you can play Mishmash, and each one feels a little bit different. You can play Voyager. We are planning something similar with Mirror Starfleet. So you can play a couple different ways, and that'll bleed into the next set as well. But I'm sure we'll get into that later on. So yes, I very much like the choices before making a deck. Lead you to play slightly different ways depending on what theme you want to run. I'm a big fan of that.
Yes.
All right, good. Well, Matt, welcome. I'm sorry about the mix-up on invitations.
Thanks, no problem.
All right, so everyone, welcome Matt Zinno, also known as Com Decker on the boards.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, did you have any opening statements you wanted to give to us?
Don't think I have. I think I'll wait for questions or a topic, but I'll say that I'm here representing the errata team. So that Smiley doesn't have to do double duty.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Excellent. Is this a new appointment then?
It's not. It's a new revelation, shall we say?
So you've been outed from the secret cabal then?
I suppose I now have.
Yes.
All right. So then let's see. So we've done. Oh, yeah, one more question in design. So one of the concerns that was seen in the survey was there are not enough first edition designers. So do you guys feel that this is the case? And if so, what's being done about it? If not, why not?
Let's see now. Well, we have added, I think, since this survey went up, I think we've added we've added 4 people since then. So I think we are we are filling up the design positions as we need them. But we feel that we don't need to fill it up unless we actually have sets for them to do, because we don't want them to sit on their hands and not do anything. So at the moment we are filling it up as we go along, and as we are seeing that we need more designers. And I think Charlie said it better when I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, is that we are expanding the design teams now from 3 to 4, and that means that we have more space for designers. And since we know more in advance now what sort of sets that we are doing, we know more. We are better at planning for them, so people know when we need people, when we need designers. And as we open up the 4th slot, it's easier to bring in. Now I forgot the English word for it. Interns. We can bring in interns. So, did I miss anything, Dan?
Nope, I think you hit it. We've, as I mentioned in the opening, I think we've definitely increased the number of people we're working with. So that's good news.
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. So Matt's arrival is fortuitous because the next section is errata.
Okay.
All right, so there seems to be a split in the community right now regarding removing cards from the OTF ban list. Some people say yes, some people say oh, don't even bother, let's just make new cards. So how has the errata team addressed this issue in the last year, and what will be happening in the future?
So what the errata team has been doing and has actually changed. At the beginning, we were specifically focused on the ban list and trying to collate suggestions for how to address the cards that were there, what was wrong with them in the first place. We've got some expertise from a couple different directions on the team, and everybody was throwing out suggestions. We got a lot of those written up into the. We're using the same. I'm not sure if database is the right word. That design is using is called Utopia Planitia, and we can see what the cards are going to look like. We end up, after we're satisfied with them, we send them off to play testing. We also give them a pass by the rules team before they go to art and get released. We have had one or two waves of errata come out from the ban, mostly from the ban list already. And we are still active at trying to get more ideas, more of those cards with new text or slight fixes or grand fixes, if it takes that, to get them down on the power curve or whatever it is that is wrong with that particular card. Now, a lot of them have come back several times from play testing, and we just can't get them right. Those include some of the ones that I think a few of the cards that I think a lot of people seem to be clamoring for, like Organ Theft. We're trying to get Organ Theft. We're trying to get it right. We're trying to get it to get back from play testing with thumbs up. More recently, we have been augmenting our goal to not just include cards that are on the ban list, but to also take a look at the general state of the game and see if there are cards which are not banned, but that need some kind of adjustment. We've already seen the watch list as a factor of this. We have published it, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Making sure I'm up on that. We've got cards that we are taking a look at, sometimes because of specific complaints that we've seen, sometimes because of repeated performance in high-level tournaments, where we're aware that there are or may be problems with some of these cards, and we're going to see what we can come up with to do about them. And like everything else that we're doing, any ideas that we do have get run by playtesting and get run by rules before publishing.
All right, thank you. Any other comments on that topic? Okay, so considering going on in that vein then that you just brought up, Matt, should old cards receive erratum to make their wording consistent with new cards?
We haven't generally been doing errata, or haven't even been considering errata solely for that sake, though there are sometimes occasions where an old card is being reprinted for some other reason. For example, Alternate Universe Store was reprinted in one of the home fronts recently. And so we did take a look at it, and we thought about whether it should get any kind of wording update. So it can happen, but it hasn't really been a goal. It hasn't been a goal in its own right, and it hasn't been something that would get a card onto our plate to begin with.
Okay, so I think you've sort of answered this next question. This was a concern I saw multiple places, that people really loved the first batch of errata, and they want more. They want more cards off the OTF ban list.
Okay.
But it seems that I think that you've answered this concern in that what's holding them up. What's holding up the new ones, and play testing.
Yes, we want more too.
Yes.
And we have some that we think are ready to go, or are ready to get into somebody's hands and have them say, yes, it's ready to go. And as far as I've seen, we just have really been limited by either the number of play testers we have or the amount of feedback that we're getting from them.
All right.
And part of it is part of it is that even if Errata does have things to send to playtesters, and even if there are playtesters to look at them, Errata competes for space in amongst other things that the playtesters are going to look at, such as new cards. And from what I've heard, new cards are always more attractive.
Well, the problem we have noticed a small thing is that each time we put old cards or cards that we are doing errata for in the hands of playtesters, they always do them. They do them. They focus on the errata. They forget about all the new cards that we're doing. So the old cards, I think, has baggage in the form of, you have played with them, you have some sort of connection to them, so whatever happens to them, you are more invested into them. So you tend to focus a lot on that. So I think what happened is that we try not to compete with new sets for playtesting. So that's why it takes a little bit more time to do all this, because we try to squeeze in the errata between the sets, more or less.
Okay, so let's see. I guess the next thing I've got here, I'm trying to decide whether I want to badger you guys about changing queue or not. I think I'm going to pass on that.
Good.
Did we do that, or was that before the errata team started?
That was before.
I think
that's what I thought.
That's been around for a long. That errata's been around for a long time, I think. But I saw it recently, and it made me sad. I know, and I hated getting hit by Q.
It's Alan.
Because one of the guys in my play group loved putting Q and Shellyak under every mission.
Who did not?
Who didn't really? I'm guilty. But yeah, so I know it's hard to balance out the flavor of old cards and erratating them so that so that they're not broken anymore.
Yeah, and there is a concern that we've been running into in that, what we need to do with some of the cards, they're too powerful and we need to rein them in, and sometimes in our attempts to do so, we end up with a thing that playtesting says, okay, it's not broken anymore, but it's too weak, I would never use this. And so that one goes back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
All right, so last question then for errata. Who is going to run the 1E errata team?
Well, my answer, and maybe somebody else has a different one, as far as I know, it's Smiley's the one in charge, and there are no current plans I'm aware of for changing that.
So I'm running it.
Okay.
So badger me if you feel something is off. You should badger me about it. But I have a fantastic team that helps me. Just takes time. Everything takes time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know, and that's why we have over in second edition. That's why we have Josh Sheets running the team, and before him John Corbett, who both of them have done a fantastic job with running errata. So I hope you guys are as successful.
Let's say
in your efforts there.
Let's say it like this: we are copying as much as we can from 2E when it comes to their errata team, because they did something good and great, and we want to expand that into first edition too.
All right. So, any final comments on errata?
There are some cards, like I said, there are some cards that are on the ban list that we are trying to do, and there are some cards that are harder to do. And it may be the case. I think this was a question on the survey. We're thinking about the idea that maybe some of them won't come back.
Yeah, I think the most of the people on the survey said that they thought that 10 cards on the ban list was a really good number. Like they didn't want to see more than that.
Okay. That sounds to me like it might be...
All right, so let's move on then to rules. So I'm going to read a list here.
Oh dear.
All right, a rule book dating from 2000, a glossary that dates to last year, current ruling document, conversion rules, OTF rules, revised rules, X-list rules, dilemma resolution guide, 1E open format tutorials. What the heck is going on over there, guys?
I'll start by saying a few of those aren't official rules documents. They're just there as convenient reminders. A la the dilemma resolution guide, which is really just explaining how to enforce the rules rather than an official rules document onto itself. And if those two are ever in conflict, always go with the glossary, not the DRG. I mean, I think we have been looking, and this is kind of a organized play / rules joint endeavor about the number of formats that are supported, because a lot of them were figuring out how to get from the open world to something we liked that was balanced and placating some play groups. And as it's been noted, the play groups that we kept things like standard, especially standard around for, don't really play much anymore. And so whether or not we need standard for anything besides the fact that it meets an achievement is questionable. I've never seen a standard tournament run for any purpose but achievement getting revised even to a degree, although I personally love the revised format. But those are things that are under constant, consideration of just cutting us down to open and OTF. I think if we got rid of revised, we might actually see the occasional open tournament, which you don't see much now, because there is something to be said for that form of the game, and because of that, there will always be a minimum, I think, of 2 supported rules formats. I would be very upset personally if we ever tried to go to a single supported rules format, because I am a big fan of the open game and some of those cards being played the way they were. The current rulings is really just a facet of trying to make it easier to find the changes to the glossary when they happen. I think that, again, it's not really a new rules document. It's an extension of the glossary. Absolutely, we could just put all of those updates in the glossary every time, but I think that would be a lot harder for people to find when we release a new ruling, to have to scroll through the 80 some odd pages to find the 2 words we changed in cloaking or whatever that was. And so a lot of it is we need that many documents for the convenience of the players. And I don't think there's much of a way around it while keeping the complexity that makes 1E awesome.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's the part of me that sees all of this stuff and says, as a second edition player, going, "Oh my God, an 87-page glossary plus the rule book? Oh my!" But I understand that that's part of the philosophy of first edition, is that the rules and make all of the little Trek sense pieces. But I do know that there are some players out there who are developing their own unofficial rule books. I've seen websites to that. Are there any plans to incorporate those sorts of things?
Absolutely. I would say that. I'm guessing you're speaking of James. Specifically, the example that comes to mind is James Heaney's unofficial rule book that he's created, full of hyperlinks and other useful things. Basically, that is another just question of resources. We are considering turning the old rulebook, which is largely out of date, into that rulebook because it is a well-done machine. It just means both the proofreading of the rules team and the separate proofreading team for both rules issues and grammatical issues. And that's just, it keeps getting backseated to rules reviews of new sets and updating all of the other kind of rules issues that get more pressing. It's kind of like the project to finish updating the dilemma resolution guide. Again, I think both are very useful things, but they're not as necessary as making sure the rules don't break when we put out new sets or things like that. So that tends to take up the majority of the time that gets put into rules. So we are trying to update the rule book, so that there's something comprehensive, but not the glossary for people to walk through.
It is. We are at the moment proofing it, so hopefully we will have enough feedback on it so we can go forward with it soon.
Well, that's good to know. All right, so next question then, unless anybody has any more thoughts on the rule books, is this is a question I actually got from PM, and it was along the lines of one I wanted to ask you guys anyway, but it was worded much better than mine was. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to steal this. So it seems like we've been seeing a lot less blue text or even thumbs up lately. Do we need to explicitly ask for rulings?
So yes, and the reason for that is twofold. One, I'll admit my life is a little busier than it was, and so I'm not as ever present in the boards as as present in the boards as I was. Getting a PhD is hard work, and so just like always feel free to just PM me and say we're confused here, and I'll jump into the thread and get that interpretation, because I do miss some threads and have noticed that. The second is I'm often reticent, especially to use blue text, because blue text is generally reserved for issuing a new kind of interim rule until we can put the official wording in the glossary. And so I'll sometimes read threads and it'll seem like they've come to a consensus. And so I'm not going to put out blue text because it seems like, well, they've read the rules and someone gave a clear answer. And so I just don't necessarily go through because it would require thumbs upping one or two different posts. And so in those cases, just letting me know people still want a clarifying response, I'll jump in and give those responses. That's kind of where that is.
Okay, so all right. So any other thoughts on that, guys?
No.
All right. So oh, Christopher.
No, I have no. I think it's most of the time everybody seems to be able to find a good solution to the problem, and if not, they have a good discussion about it, and then John can just step in and just say up or down or boo or nay or whatever it's needed. But the discussions are always like well thought out and analyzed in the background, more or less. So
and
also
sometimes the rules team waits because, quite frankly, getting a list of opinions and readings of the rules just gives us more resources to look through it. We'll absolutely develop our own opinions, but when it's easier to see what both sides are arguing in a rules dispute, it means we're less likely to miss something that is, an interpretation we didn't think of, or a rule, with 80 pages, we might miss some obscure cross application. And so sometimes I let the arguments develop a little while before, just to see, let more people discuss them to get more resources to deliberate over.
Okay, so and I do wonder about that a little bit, because there seems to be a lot of contention often about rules, and I was wondering if just having so many documents, you run into rulings fatigue, where you have so many things here and there that could conflict with each other, that that it's sort of, you get this paralysis almost of, okay, where do we go from here, because there's so much that's there.
And so I could see that, and I think the biggest thing to remind is, with the possible exception of conversions, which is something that's being discussed about the future of and how we want to deal with that and where we want to put those rules, etc. The glossary is always the end game. Every other document is somehow supplementing the glossary, and that includes the rule book. The rule book is just a short form explanation of everything that's in the glossary and kind of the key points to start playing. And so when trying to figure out your own rules issues, I would say always turn back to the glossary and current rulings, which are just an extension of the glossary. It's really just like the bottom page of the glossary at that point. And even that's something we can revisit, because the current rulings is also a byproduct of an era when we didn't have a freely accessible and editable copy of the glossary, and now we do. And so if people would rather see the glossary updated more, it's something that can be worked around, as opposed to just using the current ruling document like we do now.
All right. Well, thank you. Any final thoughts on rules then? All right. So let's move into the different sets then. These questions came from a variety of areas in the survey, so I sort of scrunched them all together. First edition had its first block rotation this year, with TNG being rotated out of the block pool. Could I have the team's thoughts on this event? Do you have any lessons learned from the TNG block, and how have you applied them to DS9 and mirror blocks?
Oh, Dan, I think you should go first.
Sure, you do. Well,
it's a big question, I know.
Yeah. No, even when the DS9 block was fully, fleshed out, it had all three sets plus the DS9 warp pack. I still felt like most of the block play was TNG decks. I don't know. I'll wager a guess it was because the TNG draw and play engine, all piled together in one thing was really good. I really am looking forward to seeing, as much fun as TNG was to have and to play with and design, and to see, things just get revitalized. Yeah, it may have been a little over the top, and I'm happy to see it rotated out to see the Deep Space Nine and the Mirror decks. I'm really looking forward to seeing what floats up to the surface and what gets played. As far as lessons, we everything's compared to right now. Everything was in block play was compared to how it did against a TNG deck. How it did against Ferengi Battle or scientific diplomacy speed or something like that. Now we're comparing to DS9, and I think it's a much more, I don't know, maybe it's a much more balanced environment. Well, I think we'll see how that goes going forward. What do you think? What do you think, Smiley?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, we had when we had the TNG set or the block rotate out, we noticed that people seemed to fledge a little bit what they were supposed to be playing afterwards, because everybody had been playing TNG decks for so long, because they were on the top of the power curve more or less, and they had all the good stuff that you had grown accustomed to. And what we have, what we learned along the way is that, that we need to test it more about towards each other all the time, and that probably what we did in TNG block was maybe a little bit above what we should do. I don't know, but we've tried to pull that back a bit, and it was a really successful set. Everybody loved it. We had so much great feedback from it, and everybody was a little bit maybe disappointed when DS9 came out, because it was not as powerful as TNG was. But I think all in all, it was a good transition from TNG to DS9, and now that we had the full moving out of TNG into DS9 and the first block from Mirror, we can actually start to see what actually happens when we do these sort of transitions in the future. And I think it's fun to see, and it's interesting to see what people are going to play now. And I'm really looking forward to see what everybody else is playing, because I'm building new decks all the time, and I really want to test them out, see where we end up.
All right. Thank you. Any other thoughts on the block rotation?
I think it's an interesting format. I don't get to play it as much as I would like to, but I like that other groups are playing it. I'm looking forward to becoming kind of the thing to play. Complete will always be kind of the go-to because those of us who have been around from the beginning have all these cards that we want to play with. So I think that's the biggest argument against playing block is you don't get to play with all the cards that you have. Um, I still think block is as we're developing sets for block and as we're moving forward. I think it's an interesting, challenging environment, and I'm looking forward to seeing it continue onward. I think there'll be more information re-released on Monday about that as well.
Yes.
So actually, that does feed into my next question, guys, because Complete is definitely more popular than Block across, from across all the players who did the survey. Now, as I understand it, Block is sort of designed with the idea of new players in mind. So it's a format that because it's a limited format, you could use it to work in new players to your group. But there were still there are still cards in some of the block sets, like Buried Alive gets mentioned a lot, which has a high level of rules burden associated with them. Would creating small sets between block sets to boost affiliations not represented in the current block be an option in the future for where you could find cards like Buried Alive?
Well, that comes down to time, I guess most. We have so little. I shouldn't quote Kirk or anything here now, but we have some sets planned, and we have planned stuff way into the future, and we're building. I guess now we are building stuff that is coming out in a year. That's being developed at the moment. So what we should, if let's say it like this, our linchpin that we have today is playtesting. Everything needs to be playtest, and the more complex cards we make, the more playtesting they need, and the more sets we do, the more playtesters we would need, and the more playtest time we would need. So finding time to actually get all these cards or sets or whatever we try to do playtested. We need more playtesters, and we need more active playtesters, and we need more. This is kind of some sort of mantra for me at the moment, but to be able to do anything like that, we need to be able to be more on the more testing and more looking like squeezing it out, and it would split up the release schedule as we have it right now. We have tried to have it like 4 months in between each set release, to have it 1 year of rotation for 1 year for each set or for each block, and that we would have to cut that out and make that like to squeeze in some sort of small expansion in between would actually make it so that we have to break up a block more or less. So you could start a block and you would get some cards that you would like, and then what we have been doing is that we are focusing to get cards to fill out a set or fill out an affiliation or group or whatever later on, and you would have to wait for it. And I think the storyline element that we are trying to incorporate into the development of the blocks would be hampered quite a lot.
Yeah, I'll add. I think the original intent of the block sets as they go, the big set, little set, little set.
Yeah.
The first set was originally designed, with the starters. This is a good entry point, and as each set goes through the block. The second set has a little bit more complexity and a little bit further away from block, and the last set is probably more complexity and the least blocky stuff in it. So it would have things from all over the place. Certainly designed to play with a block, but it has the least restraint on what it could have in it as far as full complete play versus block. So there you go.
But yes, we are inserting more. We are going to insert more cards into the expansions. That is not specifically made for block. I think that was correct. Yes.
All right. So then, on that note, although some of this may have gotten spoiled a little yesterday morning, so what is the future of block?
Well, the future
I
of
read
block,
the whole thread on that topic, and it seems that the DS9 block and the first set of the mirror block have alleviated some people's fears. But now, of course, and this is always true, what's next?
Well, what's next is, I think it is tomorrow, you will be able to read the article because it came out. But yeah, okay, we can talk a little about it because it's just a couple of hours more to go. I guess.
Come on, spoilers!
Well, okay, spoilers. Well, what should we say? The highlights then. We talk about the future in regards of errata and the OTF ban list, I guess. And we are shifting errata to be more of a not get everything off the ban list as the first priority, but the first priority is to balance the game. That is one thing of the future. Let's see, what have we more? We have block is staying, I guess. Yes, block is staying. And we have designed, where we are in design of actually, let's see now. Dan is doing the last set of mirror block. So we actually have a designer here that actually does that. And he's actually doing the first set of the next block as well.
Yes.
Yes, I remember correctly. And well, and that next block is what we call the Triforce block, and that is focused on the 22nd century. So, Enterprise lovers out there, you will have a field day with that block. And in that, we have something that people have been clamoring for a while. And I think you all know what I'm talking about.
Would that be the TOS Klingons and Romulans that everybody was asking about on the survey?
I think Dan made a good spoiler with his hand over there, I guess.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, I missed that, but I can guess.
Yes. So somewhere in that block, you will find the first continuing committee developed affiliation.
Very cool.
Yes. And, well, then we have, let's see, what more do we have? I should be reading from the correct, let's see now. Yes, here it is. I shouldn't be reading from the long list, then I would be spoiling way, way longer than we are going to spoil in the next article. But yeah, then we are going to have the 5th block, which is going to be original series block. And you are going to see TOS, Federation, TOS, Klingon, and you are going to see, well, maybe a little bit of the Romulan Empire, the early years, and something else that is being discussed at the moment, but you will see more non-aligned in that at least. And then the final block will be the motion picture block that we are looking forward to, and that is going to be around the movies, as you might conclude from that. and there we will, with, this is, I should say, very tentative. But
Well, I should hope so, since it's supposed to be like 2 or 3 years in the future.
well, we are looking at the last set for the 6th block is slated for April 2019. So yeah, that's a bit in the future.
Very much a bit in the future. All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you for the spoilers. All right. So so this next section. Actually, I should ask any other questions or thoughts on block. All right. So next section. This is just sharing because I thought it was funny. No question attached to this, but there was a section on what's missing from first edition. So I had some pithy comments on what's missing. First one being the shit you took away with TNG and DS9. The second one being those seed slots I lost to Q's tent and Tribunal of Q. And this one's not as pithy, but better counters to turn 2, where did my outpost go battle decks, which I just like the description of that. I'm assuming that's the Kazon fleet there.
Yeah.
All right. So any comments there? I just thought those were funny.
We are looking into that problem at least.
I'll say we're looking at all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say the ref cards are under constant thought of review and how many can we get rid of.
Yes.
As one of the easiest ways of simplifying the game.
Yes. The bad cheese has never been fun.
All right. So, and actually, that last one is one of the other concerns questions that I had right now. Is Battle too powerful? If yes, what's being done to fix it? I think that you guys all think that seems, at least from the last comment, that Battle is that you all seem to think that Battle is too powerful right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, thoughts on that?
Kazon warships on our list.
Yes, it is, and it's been tested a lot. But yes, we are looking into it, but I think, let's see now, what was the deck that won Worlds? It was not a battle deck? Was it not? No, it was not.
Was it Bajoran Resistance Cell? That's also
so.
on our list.
Yeah, it is. But no, I don't remember. I have it somewhere. I should look it up.
It was either the top decks were Resistance Cell, straight up Bajor, I think is what Ken actually won with.
Yeah.
Because he was prepared for battle and was able to hide Bajor from rip roaring 20-something to and so yeah, it's being looked at. I think right now, as far as we can tell, Kazon is the only battle deck that is really a major problem right now.
Yeah.
I know some people who are trying to break other battle decks, but they haven't been proven to be a problem. And so there's, as far as I know, to answer a question that's in the threads right now, there is no plan to do anything about battle as battle is. We're just making sure that the Kazon deck isn't too far in one direction.
Yeah. But I should say this. We've had some interesting years, because before the continuing committee started, we had a lot of years of Herogen decks. And then all of a sudden, new decks started popping up, like a Ferengi deck actually won something for a while. Mm-hmm. And then we had some other decks that won something for a while, and now we had, well, a Kazon deck actually winning something for a while, and that hasn't happened in, well, ever, I think. So it's fun to actually have them being played for a while. But yes, sure, we are looking into it when we need to dial it back. But, you know, there's always someone actually trying to find a way to abuse a combination of cards all the time. And, well, we can't find them all on ourselves. So whenever people find the decks and find the cards that goes well together and becomes a great combination, you know, or combo decks, well, we have to look at them. But until then, please feel free to find anything you can.
And I'd like to point out that just because a particular deck wins, it does not mean that it's overpowered, especially if Ken's playing it. It might not be the deck's fault.
Yes, you're right.
All right. So, so any final comments on battle then? All right. So then, next question. I just have 2 more questions for you guys, and then we'll wrap up. The delay of crossover was of real concern to the players, especially regarding the timing of the preview at Gen Con and the release time around Worlds. Would you guys care to comment on that?
Yeah. Well, designing crossover was not an easy thing to do. Balancing it took longer time than we had anticipated, and I think, well, Dan, you were a part of that. But what actually happened is that we had tried to set a timetable for everything down the line of development of the set, and design just took more time because playtesting those cards just took more time than we had anticipated, and we needed to I think it was like February that we needed to be send in everything for Gen Con, I think it was. So we had to set we had to say that, well, we will be able to show something at Gen Con, and we really wanted the set to be out by then, or at least be able to be previewed by then. So what happened was that we just had delays that ended up slowing everything down. So what we could show at Gen Con was not the set that we wanted to show. We wanted to be ready by then. We wanted that to be a preview thing, so everybody that was there would actually see the final art and everything. But it was not in the cards.
I saw what you did there.
And I'm not even English native speaker. I try to.
You know, that's so when I was in college, I minored in linguistics, and one of the ways that we learned that you could tell if somebody was very fluent in a foreign language to them was if you could make jokes in that language. So there we are.
Thank you.
All right, so this is the last question. This one is from me. This is my own personal question for you guys, because I was intrigued by this card, as I may have mentioned previously in this. Will quantum incursions really have a rotating requirement, i.e., will the website for the QR code change in the future? If so, is there a projected timeline of changes? If not, could you just please give the 1E players an AI with the text printed on it instead of the QR code?
Dan?
Yes. I think the reason that there has not been an AI is because the answer to that question is no comment.
There you go.
Damn it.
That was as straight answer as you gonna get, I guess. No.
I think my personal view, if it had the text on it, it would hardly be a Fajo card.
Exactly.
Okay.
Inspired
taken there.
Inspired by a Fajo card.
Okay.
All right, guys. So that is all the questions that I have for you. Let's go ahead. Can I get any final comments? And I will start with Matt. Unmute yourself, Matt.
Sorry. Yeah, I had to find my mute button. I was off in the chat room. Do I have any final comments? Errata is important to the game, and we are, as much as you want us to be, we are working on it. And we want some of the things that we have been working on to get released just like you want.
All right, then, John, final comments.
I'll give everyone a paraphrase of what I tell my students. I can't read your mind, and I don't know your problems. So if you have an issue with the rules, PM me. I will try to respond as quickly as I can and help you, but I can't do anything if I don't know what the issue is.
I'm going to use that one for my students now. All right. All right then, Dan.
I have seen the future, and it is bright. There's a lot of good cards coming down the pipe, so I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. New cards, always good. All right, Smiley.
Well,
Wrap up.
all these great people, they stole all my lines, so I have to come up with something of my own then. Well, I've seen the future too, and I think I've been a little bit of. I hope I have been a great part of it, or at least I want people to be a part of it. So I'm adding more people to it as we go along. But you know, Dan is more in the here and now of the future. Further ahead, I'm USS Relativity, all the way over there, and you know, we trying to tie it all together with all these excellent people that we see here, and I should say I want to thank all the other ones that we don't see, because we have a lot of designers that work with Dan on his set and all the other sets that we don't see, and we have a fantastic crew that works under John with his team, you know, his rules team. They do a whole bunch of work, and I could get to see that, and they really work hard on all the things that they dig up. You know, sometimes I think, you know, I didn't know that was you were able to do that in Star Trek, and you know, I get overturned each time I log in and see what they're talking about, and you know, it's so cool. And the same goes for the Rada team. They find new ways to tweak a card that we thought that we had it worked, and then we find something wrong with it. And so same goes for the playtesters and art. And now David logged out, but you know, David's crew with his creative team, they do such a great work with the lore. You know, it's like reading small universes on each card, and I love that. You know, I'm so lucky, and I'm to be a part of this great family of players and people that love Star Trek and the Star Trek First Edition card game. I hope that I get to be a part of it a little while longer, as long as you want me to be. I'm humbled.
All right, so then I guess that's it for us today. Christopher Weeker, aka Smiley, John Carter, aka PFTI, Dan Hammond, aka Sir Dan, Matt Zinno, aka Com Decker, and thank you to Dave Runyon, Super Dave, who had to leave us earlier in the broadcast. I hope everyone here has enjoyed the first edition period of review. I'm Maggie Geppert, aka Jadzia Dax 8, and I would just like to take this last moment to thank Charlie Midnight Lich, our wonderful chairman, for inviting me out to be your moderator yesterday and today. So thank you guys all. It was really great talking with you. I learned a lot about First Edition today. So hope you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank
Thank you all.